Hello. Today we ask Reddit what is the best way to harmlessly mess with people. Say, high five, to someone, but don't put your hand up. Now that's just evil. Then when they put theirs up, say nah, I'm good. When driving I like to wave at random people as if I knew them. Hilarious to see instant confusion on their faces. I used to wave at random cars if I liked the car. I pass this really nice old Chevy every day on the way to and from work. We now wave to each other every time. When I was a corrections officer we had a guy who worked with us who was kind of a dick to everyone, and he was computer illiterate. We took a screenshot of his desktop and moved all of his icons off of it so it looked legit, but nothing worked. It took him an hour before he finally called IT and they figured it out pretty quickly. He wouldn't talk to any of us for about a week. Better still is to Photoshop one icon into the desktop wallpaper and then remove this one icon. Everything works except for one shortcut. Oh no. Take it to the next level. Screenshot desktop. Flip photo upside down in Paint. Hide all icons. Set screenshot as wallpaper. Flip entire display 180 degrees in display settings. Not only is nothing working, but the mouse is moving totally opposite of your inputs. Carefully step over a non-existing obstacle. Do this at a crosswalk when the cars stop too close. My friend used to do it with a car at red lights. He would carefully steer out of the way of literally nothing and the rest of the cars behind him would do the same. You know, I always wondered if that's how people would react, but turns out most people don't give a fuck. I drive this specific route often. Recently, a very weirdly shaped pothole has appeared. It's super wide, not that deep but still large enough to do some damage. Because it's in a tunnel with almost no light, you don't really see it until it's too late. I always veer a tad to the side, if it's safe to avoid it. No one behind me ever does. The best I've seen is somebody slow down, give me the what the duck face, and then I watch them bounce hard on the pothole. Say, no pun intended, after a sentence where there was clearly no pun. This meatloaf is amazing, Sharon, no pun intended. If someone says, no pun intended, I always respond with, oh none taken, and enjoy seeing them confused. When you shake someone's hand, move yours left to right. As they do the traditional up and down, a hilarious circle ensues. I can't believe I've never thought of this. Totally left and right handshaking from now on. The middle finger palm tickle is also pretty gross for unknown reasons. I put a tiny piece of masking tape over my coworker's mouse laser on April Fool's Day one year, wrote, April Fools, on it. He troubleshot every single thing except examining the mouse. He eventually called IT, who simply turned the mouse over and pointed it out to him. Plug in a second mouse. Leave it under their desk but so you can reach it with your foot. Kick it occasionally. I plugged a wireless mouse onto one of my college professor's computers and moved the mouse around every time he wasn't looking at the screen. Did this for a few days and always took back the USB at the end of class without him noticing. Finally, when doing my final presentation, he realized what was happening when I took my own mouse up with me to click through the slides. Don't turn around when you walk into a lift. Conversely, turn around too much. Just stand in the corner and rotate 90 degrees every 4 to 5 seconds or so. I'm training to be a rotisserie chicken. When having a conversation during a meal, specifically only ask questions to people that are chewing. ETA, I was never a server, but had this taught to me by a dear friend of mine years ago when we used to eat in a public cafeteria and mess with people we just met. Love this one. It's on the verge of being rude, but it's so subtle people will assume you just lack awareness. This is a skill servers must master before being unleashed to their tables. It never fails that I'm asked, how is everything, whilst chewing. This is a purposeful tactic to both show attentiveness to the table while avoiding getting stuck in a conversation. Whenever I visit my extended family across the country, I bring a bag full of random remotes that I don't use anymore. Just random remotes that go to old DVRs or anything really. Just hide them around their house, they only recently caught on. OP said harmless. That's the devil's work. The main question is, how do you have several bags of remotes you don't use? Ask. What was your, or your wife's, husband's, sister's etc. name again? After they answer I shake my head and say, no. That's not it. Bonus points if it's a stranger. I know someone who always takes an item to a party and leaves it somewhere in the house, i.e. a trinket or tchotchke. My aunt fills her medicine cabinet with ping-pong balls whenever she has a party. Friend of mine once did this with an insanely overgrown turnip from her garden. Like, this thing was literally the size of a child. She left it in the passenger seat of their truck with a seatbelt on it. In the same vein, add a decoration to their Christmas tree. My mother and I do this to her mom. My grandmother is a stereotypical old white lady, for a little context. And we go to Lover's, or Spencer's, or wherever and find the most inappropriate ornament we can and leave it on her Christmas tree. Tucked off to the far side so she doesn't see it until she's taking her tree down. Our favorite too include Santa doing bicep flexes in just his hat, and a stocking on his you-know-what. And Santa and Mrs. Claus with her skirts up, doggy style. We get great enjoyment out of this. Especially in January when my mom calls her mom for their weekly chat, and Grandma is going on about this ornament she found and she doesn't know where it came from. Mom has to mute the phone because we're laughing our asses off. Oh man, do I have a story. In my freshman year of college, my roommate was a very neat and orderly person. He had every pencil in place, every paper had a folder, and his things got neatly packed away. We were pretty amicable towards one another, even with my messy living. At first, when he would leave for classes, I would admire how tidy his desk was and thought to myself, I should fuck with that. For the whole year we lived together I would sneak used staples everywhere on his stuff. Homework folder? Staple. Pencil case? Staple. Backpack? Staple. Shower caddy? You bet that pube-infested bar of soap got a staple on it. Hell, even the TV remote got a staple in it between the batteries so when they died he would eventually find another. I did it often but was careful to space the staple events far enough apart to not raise suspicion on myself. I further protected myself by making a huge deal of having to borrow the across-the-hall neighbor's stapler whenever I needed to bind papers together. About March of our second semester he had become insanely suspicious of anybody with a stapler and watched them like a hawk. The straw that broke the camel's back, I had asked him one night what his plans were under the guise of having a companion over for a visit. He said after dinner he had to go check out some obscure book at the library. When he left and headed to the dining hall, I snuck off to the library, found the obscure book he needed, and clicked a staple into it. He gets back to the dorm room and I'm doing homework in the same spot when he had left an hour earlier, claiming the meetup didn't end up happening. He sits down at his desk and opens up his newly rented book and I hear that staple fall out onto his desk. All I hear after that is, yo, where the fuck all these goddamn staples coming from? I revealed myself after graduation when I mailed him a birthday card with a used staple in it. Thankfully he got the biggest kick out of the card and we still talk daily. If I know someone is walking a little ways behind me and I turn a corner with nobody else around, I like to run 10-20 steps to widen the gap and then laugh to myself thinking that the person behind me will be confused. I doubt anyone ever notices, but I get a kick out of it every time. After giving a compliment, say, no offense, and watch them struggle to find the non-existent insult. I love this idea, no offense. Your comment is hilarious, no offense. This has been an inside family joke of ours for 30 years. One time at Thanksgiving an old aunt was telling a story about being in line at a bank. She said the person in front of her was big, fat, and ugly. She turned to my mom, said, no offense, and then kept on with her story. We spent the night trying to figure out which one of the horrible adjectives was so relevant to my mom that it warranted a no offense. From then on, whenever someone describes an item as big or fat or ugly, we have to turn to one of our family members and say, no offense. It's quite charming now. My mother-in-law is meticulous about her home decor. One day, we come over and she out of the blue asks if we have been flipping one of her decorations on its side every time we visited. We were puzzled until our 6-year-old started cracking up. The little monster had been switching it for months. Everyone got a good laugh out of it. Kid was playing the long game, that's impressive. Usually kids can't wait to brag about their mischief. Yours waited till it actually came up in conversation. Hilarious. For a 6-year-old, that is a frightening amount of patience. My friend was logged into his Twitter on my tablet, so I kept changing his profile picture to a banana. He thought someone hacked him and tweeted about it. I replied to the tweet using his profile. It got so bad he was arguing with himself on Twitter. When you're talking to someone, just keep handing them random items. They'll just keep taking them without realizing it. I once handed someone an ice cube while passing them in the hall at work. I'm British, living in Poland. Whenever I'm in the city I always stop and help people holding maps, because there's really not much support for tourists and I want to give other visitors a good impression. However, I usually talk to them in a really thick, fake Slavic accent, but segue into my plummy English accent over the course of the conversation. If they ever comment on how good my English is, I lapse straight back into the fake Polish one and thank very much for nice words. I try do my best but it's hard, you know? Now do that, but take the map and hold it upside down. I'm a medic and firefighter and years ago my partner and me started joking about having very thick stereotypical Canadian accents. On the next call I started talking to the patient with the accent and my partner was trying not to lose his mind, trying not to laugh. We spent rest of the night talking to patients like that, but only the patients. My grandpa does this thing where he stops in a busy street and starts staring into the sky as if he's seen something amazing. It doesn't take long for other people to stop and stare too. Once he reaches critical mass he quietly slips away chuckling to himself. Edit, he's in his 90s now, but when he was a teenager he was a bit of a young tearaway and had a pet monkey, which is weird considering this was the UK. One of my favorite Garfield comics is this exact game. Garfield and Odie are looking up and John sees this and joins in looking up. It's so simple being only 3 panels and I find it hilarious. Whenever you're speaking to somebody who is dominating the conversation, focus on their chin or ear. Look slightly concerned. Every so often flick back to their eyes, but then always make your way back to the one thing. Watch them get increasingly more uncomfortable, then eventually just leave. The movie theater in my town is usually mostly empty. There's been a couple of times when I've come in to get seated and there's literally only one other person in my auditorium. There's an evil part of me that wants to just go sit right next to them. Not illegal, but it should be. Do it, and start a conversation with a code like in old spy movies. The red ducks only fly at night. Walk out of the theater room as soon as you finish. Then walk back in and sit as far from them as possible. When cold called, make your only response, "What?" in varying tones. Once got to almost 5 minutes with an Indian guy from some insurance scam call center before being told to duck off. Phone has been pretty silent since then. Alternate approach, say, "Okay, hold on a sec." Lay the receiver down and see how long they are prepared to wait on the chance you're coming back. Good times. Even better if they have a script. Set the phone down, let them get through the entire script, and wait about 10 seconds before saying, "I'm sorry. Could you repeat that?" Repeat as many times as necessary. If you are at a stoplight with your window down, gesture to the car next to you to roll down their window. If they roll their window down, roll yours up and just carry on. I have been known to shout to someone at a stoplight, "Your window is down," after motioning them to roll down their window. I have also told people while sitting at a light that their keys are in the door. With that, I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you for sticking around until the end of the video and don't forget to like, subscribe and comment your favorite way to mess with people. Check out the video on screen now to watch my other content. Until next time.